Your life was decided before you were even born. You think you're free, but you're not. You're just following a script written by someone else's fear. And the worst part, you don't even know it. Let that sink in. You wake up. Same bed. Same routine. You scroll through your phone. Filtered lives, borrowed dreams, fake smiles. You put on the clothes someone else told you were appropriate. You go to work, or school, or nowhere at all, and deep down, there's this quiet ache. A whisper in your soul. This isn't me, but you silence it. Because you were trained to. Since childhood. Carl Jung didn't whisper this truth. He screamed it. Buried beneath layers of psychology most people never dare to read. Here's what he said. And I want you to hear it like your life depends on it. Because it does. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let me translate that for you. You're not living your life, you're living the echoes of your father's fears, your mother's trauma, your culture's chains. A stranger's rules, and the lie you've been fed since birth, that you chose this. And oh, you didn't. You were groomed, programmed, told what to want, told who to be, told what success looks like, what love feels like, and even what you should fear. And now you're a walking collage of other people's expectations. But you want out, you can feel it. That tension in your chest, that rage you can't explain, that hollow feeling even when things look good on paper. That's your soul fighting back. Because you weren't born for obedience, you weren't born for quiet desperation. But here's the problem. The real you is buried so deep, you don't even remember what it feels like to be free. Let's go back to the beginning. When you were a child, you were pure potential, untouched, wild, intuitive. You laughed without reason, cried without shame, dreamed without limits. But then the world stepped in. Your parents wanted you to be good. Teachers wanted you to be quiet. Society wanted you to be normal. So you started wearing masks, mask after mask, until one day, you forgot where the mask ended and you began. That's what Jung called the persona. A social costume. A survival strategy. But here's the forbidden truth they never told you. The longer you wear it, the more it suffocates your soul. And it gets worse, because the world rewards the mask. You get praise, promotions, approval. But every success feels fake. Every compliment lands like a lie. Because deep down, it wasn't you who earned it. It was the mask. You smile, but your eyes scream. You win, but feel empty. You perform, but you're dying inside. Let me tell you something brutal. If your life feels meaningless, it's because you've never actually lived it. You've just acted in a play you never auditioned for. A script written by invisible hands. Your religion, your family, your culture, your trauma. And the most terrifying part. You believed it was you making the choices. Jung warned us about this illusion. He said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Because facing it means war. It means digging up the parts of yourself that were buried alive. It means confronting the lies that kept you safe, but small. Let me show you what I mean. There was a man. Let's call him Daniel. Straight A student. Law school, corporate job, perfect resume. But every night, Daniel stared at the ceiling and thought about ending it all. Why? Because law school wasn't his dream. It was his father's. The job wasn't a passion. It was a prison. Padded with prestige, he was the good son, the golden boy. But inside, he was rotting. Until one night, he cracked. Quit everything. Burned the suit. Left the city. People called him insane. But for the first time, he was finally alive. You see, Daniel didn't have a breakdown. He had a breakthrough. Because the pain, that emptiness, that slow death you feel, it's not the enemy, it's the signal. The alarm going off inside your psyche, screaming, you're living someone else's life. And here's the trap most never escape. We defend the very system that's killing us. We cling to the job, the label, the relationship, because the mask is familiar. And freedom is terrifying. But I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to wake you up. Because every second you wait, every year you conform, every lie you swallow, takes you further from the real you. And that you, the one you were before the world twisted you, he's not gone, that he's just locked away, waiting, waiting for you to stop pretending, waiting for you to rip the mask off and scream, enough. So the question is, how do you find him again? How do you go into the dark and resurrect the self that was buried beneath shame, fear, and obedience? How do you become who you were always meant to be, before the world made you forget? That's where the descent begins, and it's not safe, it's not clean, it's not easy, but it's real, and it's yours, and once you start, you don't go back. Because the moment you taste authenticity, the moment you remember your true self, you'll never settle for the mask again. And you'll finally understand why the world tried so hard to make you forget. Screen fades to black. A whisper. They feared who you could become. Now, are you ready to meet the parts of yourself you were never supposed to find? Because in the next step of this journey, we go into the fire. And yet, you still think you made those choices. But let me ask you something darker, something you've never dared to consider. When you said yes to that job you hate, when you smiled for the family photo while your soul was silently screaming, when you told yourself, this is just how life works, was that really you? Or were you just a character in a script you didn't write? You see, Carl Jung didn't just whisper about shadows and dreams. He warned us. If you do not confront the parts of yourself buried beneath your persona, they will possess you, and worse, you'll mistake their chains for your choices. The shadow isn't just the dark impulses you suppress. It's the you that never got to live. The artist you abandoned for a 9 to 5. The rebel you silenced to be liked. The lion you muzzled to be appropriate. Let me tell you a story. There was once a boy, quiet, curious. Deep. He loved to draw monsters. Strange creatures with too many eyes and claws that reached into the sky. His teachers said he was gifted, but also a little off. His parents, they wanted a doctor or an engineer, not a monster drawing freak. So they took away his sketchbook, enrolled him in science clubs, taught him to fear his own imagination. Years passed. He got the degree, the job, the praise, but at night, when the world went quiet, he'd feel them. The creatures, the ones he abandoned. They didn't leave, they waited, and they began to whisper, "You've lived that story too, haven't you? Maybe not with monsters, maybe with music, or freedom, or rage. You used to know who you were, but then someone called you too much, too weird, too intense. So you obeyed, you folded in, you became digestible. But here's what they never told you. Every part of you that you exile becomes a puppet string in the hands of someone else. The more you suppress, the easier you are to control. They built the system that way. Families, schools, religions, corporations. They all reward obedience, not authenticity. That's why Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So when you feel lost, empty, depressed, that's not a malfunction, that's your true self trying to break out. And here's the brutal truth. Your pain is your proof. Because if you were truly living your life, you wouldn't be this exhausted. You wouldn't be waking up with that pit in your chest. You wouldn't be scrolling through videos like this, searching for something you can't name. They told you to find your passion. But they never said how many layers of lies you'd have to peel off first. And most people, they'd rather stay wrapped in the lie. Because facing the truth means facing the betrayal. The betrayal of parents who projected their failures onto you. The betrayal of systems that programmed you to be a cog, not a creator. The betrayal of yourself for being too afraid to rebel. It's not your fault. But it is your responsibility now. Because no one is coming to rescue you. And no one is going to give you permission to become who you were meant to be. You have to steal yourself back. Let's go deeper. Jung believed that every person carries within them the image of the self, a blueprint of who they're supposed to become. But this self isn't polite. It isn't predictable. And it doesn't care if it makes your dad uncomfortable. The self is raw, wild, sacred. And if you keep betraying it, it will destroy you from the inside out. This is why people sabotage relationships. Why they overeat, overdrink, overthink. They are at war with themselves and losing. But you don't have to keep losing. Here's where the power starts. You must listen to what you've been taught to ignore. That flicker of jealousy when you see someone doing what you dream of, that's not sin. That's signal. That anger that rises when you're dismissed or silenced, that's not immaturity. That's your soul remembering it has claws. That ache you feel when you're alone, that's not weakness. It's your real self begging to be heard. You don't need more motivation. You need confrontation. Look in the mirror and say it. I am not the mask I wear, I am not the role I play. I am not your obedient child, your quiet employee, your pleasant little ghost that I'm becoming. This is where the shift begins. You stop asking for permission. You start reclaiming your time, your mind, your rage. And yes, rage is sacred too when it's aimed at the prison that caged you. People will call you selfish. They'll say you've changed. Let them, because the life you were born to live, it's going to cost you the one you were conditioned to accept. And the only thing more dangerous than walking away is staying asleep. You were never meant to be average. You were just trained to be. But now, the training ends, and something deeper, something ancient is waking up. The question is, will you follow it? Or will you go back to sleep and call that being realistic? Choose carefully, because in part 3, the transformation begins. And once you see what you were meant to become, you'll never fit back into that cage again. There's a moment right before the avalanche begins. A silence so deep it almost feels holy. That's where you are now. Not broken, not defeated, but paused. Right on the edge of transformation. You can feel it, can't you? The tension under your skin, the burn behind your eyes, the undeniable pull of something greater whispering, this isn't who you were meant to be. Carl Jung called this the individuation process, the sacred rebellion against everything false in you. But don't get it twisted. This isn't some soft, spiritual makeover. It's war. And the battlefield is inside your mind. See, you were conditioned to fear your own becoming. Because when you finally step into who you really are, you become unpredictable, uncontrollable, untouchable, and that terrifies the world. Let me tell you the forbidden truth. Society survives by keeping lions in cages. It thrives by rewarding the tame and punishing the wild. But here's what they don't expect. Sometimes the lion remembers who it is, and when it does, nothing can hold it anymore. So if you're ready, truly ready, to take back your life, you need to do something most people never will. You must descend into the shadow, into the trauma, into the old wounds you've been pretending don't hurt anymore. You have to go where the pain is, because beneath the hurt is the part of you that never gave up. Listen closely. The persona, the mask you wear in public, isn't the real you, but it's the armor you built to survive. The good girl, the strong son, the respectable man, the harmless woman. But armor becomes a prison when you forget how to take it off. Jung didn't just theorize this. He lived it. He walked away from everything familiar. He went mad. He faced visions, voices, chaos, and in that darkness, he met the self. The raw, divine essence that had been buried under politeness and programming. That's what waits for you. But first, you must let the false version of you die. The people pleaser, the approval addict, the fake smiling, I'm fine mask wearer. Kill it. Ritualistically, mercilessly. You don't need it anymore. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be whole. And wholeness requires sacrifice. Let go of the old life. The one built on fear. On compromise. On borrowed dreams and silent suffering. Because the new you, the real you, isn't soft, it's not apologetic, it's not digestible. It doesn't shrink to fit anyone's expectations. It speaks with power. It walks with purpose. It looks the world in the eye and says, I remember who I am now. This is the transformation. Not some surface level glow up, but a soul deep resurrection. And when it happens, everything changes. Let me show you. Suddenly, conversations feel different. You no longer tolerate small talk or shallow masks. You crave depth, truth, fire. You walk into rooms and people feel something. Not ego, not arrogance, but presence. Like a storm in human form. You stop chasing jobs, people, validation. Because what's meant for you starts coming to you, drawn to your new gravity. You look in the mirror and For the first time in years, you recognize the eyes staring back. Not the tired, bent version of yourself, but the one who never stopped burning. People won't understand that. They'll say, "You've changed. You're not the same. You've gotten so intense." Good. You were never meant to stay palatable. You were meant to set fire to every false version of you and rise. This is what Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You don't get power by avoiding the dark. You get it by owning it. Your anger? Use it. Your grief? Transmute it. Your shame? Burn it for fuel. Because now you know everything they told you to suppress was where your real power lived. You were never meant to be tame. You were never meant to be small. You were never meant to be someone else's puppet. You were born to command your own myth. And now you begin. But understand this, the transformation will cost you comfort, certainty, familiar love. You might lose friends, family, security, but what you gain is freedom. The kind that can't be bought, can't be faked, can't be taken away, because it lives inside you now, and it glows like a quiet war cry beneath your skin. You're no longer the prey. You are now the strategist. You see the games, the masks, the manipulation, and you don't flinch, because when you've faced your own darkness, no one else's can scare you. You are not their version of you anymore. You are you, unfiltered, unchained, unapologetically alive. So when they ask, "Who do you think you are?" smile. Look them dead in the eye and say, "Exactly who I was meant to be." Now that you've seen the truth, you can't go back. You can't unknow it. Can't unsee how the strings were pulled. Can't unfeel that fire beginning to rise in your chest. You've crossed the line, and on the other side, there is no map and no permission slip and no one waiting to cheer you on. Only the raw, electric reality that you are now the architect of your life. This is where most people panic, because when there's no one left to blame, there's no one left to save you either. It's you, just you, alone with your choices, your power, your potential. And that's exactly where you need to be, because now you're dangerous. Not in a reckless, destructive way. No, you're dangerous because you've reclaimed your sovereignty. You no longer operate from guilt. You no longer seek permission. You no longer chase shadows, hoping they'll love you back. You move from the center now, from truth, from strategy, from clarity. And that terrifies the system, because a sovereign soul, one that can't be bribed, guilt, or broken, is the rarest, most powerful force in the world. You've met that version of yourself now. The one who watches silently, calculates moves before speaking. Doesn't need to shout to command a room. The one who chooses what to feel and when to act. You've tasted the edge of what Carl Jung called the self. Not the role, not the face, but the entire, burning, complex you, hidden beneath the debris of who they told you to be. And the truth is, that version of you was always there. You just buried it. Survive. Fit in. Not be left behind. But what they never told you is that hiding your true self doesn't keep you safe. It only keeps you asleep. The world doesn't need more obedient replicas. It needs you. Fully formed, fully activated, fully awake. Because when you show up like that, you don't just live a better life. You dismantle the systems that profit from your silence. Your transformation becomes an act of rebellion and an act of defiance, an act of healing for every ancestor who had to kneel, swallow, and obey. Do you understand now? This journey isn't just about you, it's about reclaiming a lineage, correcting a pattern, breaking the spell, and the final step, the final, forbidden truth. You were never broken. You were buried. Beneath the expectations, beneath the betrayals, beneath the 1,000 little lies, whispered into your ear by people who never knew your worth. The system didn't fail you. It designed you to fail at being your authentic self. Because if you had woken up too soon, you would have questioned everything. The school, the job, the media, the religion, the shame they sold you as morality. But now you see it all. You see how fear was marketed as wisdom, how conformity was disguised as maturity, how numbness was praised as stability. They didn't want you conscious. They wanted you compliant. But Jung's work, his legacy, was a grenade tossed into that illusion. Because he dared to say, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And you felt that pain. You faced the loss, the confusion, the void. But through it all, you kept moving. And now you're not becoming. You've arrived. Let that sink in. You don't have to chase anymore. You don't have to fix yourself. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to remember who you are. That's the quiet revolution, the inner uprising, the reclamation of your soul, and it's irreversible. From this point forward, everything in your life will be filtered through this new lens. Jobs, relationships, goals. No more settling. No more betraying yourself to keep the peace. No more pretending you don't feel what you damn well feel. You will start speaking truths that shake rooms. You will walk away from anything that dilutes your essence. You will begin creating, writing, building, loving from a place of raw authenticity. Because now you're not just living life. You're authoring it. Like a sovereign. Like a strategist. Like the master of your fate. And when people come to you, confused, afraid, searching, you'll look them in the eye and say, I know, I was asleep once too. Because that's the final form of power. Not dominance. Not control. But the ability to wake others up. You've done what most never will. You've walked through the dark. You've burned the mask. You've reclaimed your name. You've become, finally, you. Now let the world feel it. Let your presence be the revenge. Let your clarity be the rebellion. Let your joy be the justice. Because you were never meant to suffer for someone else's comfort. You were born to embody the truth. And now, you do so. If this spoke to something ancient in you, if it stirred a memory buried in your bones, then don't keep it to yourself. Comment what awakened. Subscribe if you're ready to build from the ashes. And share this with the one person who's standing at the edge of their own avalanche. Because they might not survive unless they hear this. Now go. And never, ever return to the life that was never yours.